Chapter 12. The Quiet Madness. Days bled into weeks as I settled into the rhythm of life at the palace, and with each passing day I found myself more and more entrenched in the quiet work of healing. My mornings were spent in the herbarium, collecting new flora and examining the strange, otherworldly plants that grew in the harsh desert landscape. Some had properties I had never encountered before: leaves that could induce deep sleep, flowers that seemed to glow at twilight, and roots with the ability to relieve poisons more potent than even the venom of Nagini. The flora was rich and untapped, a vast repository of knowledge waiting to be explored. The afternoons were spent in the palace's private alchemy room, where I could create potions and remedies for those in need. The palace staff had quickly learned that I worked best when left to my own devices, so they brought me ingredients as needed, often returning with my concoctions hours later, leaving me uninterrupted. The isolation suited me, but my mind was a different story. It was impossible to ignore her. Zafira. She was everywhere, and yet she was so out of reach, and I could not stop watching her. I was careful, always careful. A glance over a goblet of tea in the garden, a passing look as she left her father's chambers, a stillness in the shadows as she walked past with advisors trailing her like anxious sand beetles. She never saw me, or if she did, she never let it show. I'd mastered discretion long ago, had lived in silence, in secrecy, in longing hidden behind masks and cold stares. But Zafira was not Lily. She did not walk with innocence trailing like a veil behind her. No, Zafira moved like the desert sun, unrelenting, commanding, and impossible to touch without being changed. She made decisions with poise and spoke with fire. She argued policy with the viziers, who often left their meetings more scorched than victorious. Victorious. Her name, it suited her. She was more victorious than they were. She argued her piece and won nearly every time. She was beautiful and smart. And yet at the same time I saw her in the garden alone, fingers trailing along the petals of moon lotus flowers, her expression unreadable, a contradiction of steel and softness. That contradiction kept me watching. She would pass by the open courtyard where I sometimes prepared poultices or trained new healers. I'd dip my head toward parchment or stir a cauldron with unnecessary diligence, ears tuned to the cadence of her voice, heart betraying me more often than I would admit. In the corridors, in the grand halls, in the gardens that stretched beyond the palace walls. She was there, always moving gracefully, her lithe body adorned in flowing silks of black and gold that shimmered in the desert sun. Her crop top clung to her frame, leaving little to the imagination, while the intricate gold designs traced along her body like a second skin, highlighting her youthful curves. Her pants, either looser harem trousers or tight loincloths with slits running up the sides, gave her a regal yet approachable appearance. She was striking, impossible to ignore. I reminded myself daily. She was a princess, a sovereign heir to a throne of heat and history. And I was a man who should have died, whose very presence here was an accident of fate. Yet I watched. Not like a schoolboy, not like a fool. I watched like a man who had known death intimately and had come back only to find something far more dangerous still alive in him. Desire. I had learned quickly that her beauty was something to be both admired and feared. Men in the palace had long since stopped attempting to touch her, to make advances. The knowledge that she was the princess, untouchable, protected by her father's power and by the walls of the palace itself, kept most at bay. But that didn't stop their eyes from following her as she moved. And I was no better. I told myself I was only observing, studying her, making sure I was aware of her needs as her healer. But it went deeper than that, I knew. I had been a prisoner of my own restraint, a self-imposed cage that kept me from acknowledging the truth of what I felt. Every time I looked at her, I could feel it. the tension in my chest, the way my body responded to the sight of her.